let's go watch it in 2D. No, let's go watch it in 3D. But if we watch it in 3D, then is it worth the cost?
Hello, hello, hello! Having a spooky Halloween.
It's Adolph, and I have with me Classic Jake.
Howdy, folks.
And we're getting to the end of October, and we actually have, Halloween just around the corner.
Woohoo!
And
Love Halloween.
you love Halloween. And, a couple of years ago, we did top 13 movies for Halloween, and there's a lot of movies we left off that list. And
Yeah.
a lot of them are 3D movies, and we have abundance of scary 3D movies. So why not have a sequel? And that's what this is, a sequel. So this list, we'll go through numbers, and we'll talk about the movies. A couple of these movies I haven't seen, but I know for a fact you have seen all of them. I believe so. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. I'm sorry. But yeah, and we'll go through some honorable mentions and some bonus features for patrons at the end as well. So let's start it off with number 13. Now, this was a previous honorable mention, but now got upgraded onto the list. But it's all the way to the bottom of the list because it technically is a very, very short movie. I think it's like 7 minutes long or something. And 13 minutes and change, give or take. And it only got a very, very limited 3D release. And it's from a now infamous, but still beloved artist. Do you know what movie I'm talking about for this one?
Oh, this has got to be John Landis's video for Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Yes. So I've seen Thriller a dozen times, but I've never seen it in 3D. You're like the one person that has seen it. So how is it in 3D?
I know. It was an amazing conversion. And it is a crime that this is not readily available to purchase in 3D.
So this, for some reason, a couple of years ago, IMAX decided to put it up right before a screen of the house that has eyes on clocks or something.
Yeah.
Which is a 2D release. And they just, hey, look at this. And then, hey, wait a minute. We could see this in 3D? Cool. And it never got shown again.
Yeah. And it got, I mean, this is typical disrespect the 3D gets. I mean, this should have been shown with a 3D feature.
Oh, yeah.
And it should have gotten a home video release, too.
I mean, you could ask the Jackson family rights and just pay them each time you show it in theaters. And I bet most people will be very happy to see this in 3D in front of a movie theater instead of commercials for, other crap.
Yeah.
Have it be a triple feature or something or a bonus thing. You want
Yeah.
to charge $1 more? Sure, whatever. But Thriller is great. I mean, the song's fantastic. Michael Jackson. This song is absolutely masterpiece, and his personal misgivings aside, he has some fantastic music, or had fantastic music. So you can't deny that.
Yeah, and Vincent Price really just adds that je ne sais quoi to it, and that laugh.
Yeah, the laugh. Mm-hmm. All right, next up is, I'm not going to even try to segue this. Some of them I'm not going to have segues, but some of them are. I haven't seen this one. I don't remember which ones of the Friday the 13th movies I have seen, but this one got a 3D release. Do you know which one that one is?
Friday the 13th, part 3 in 3D.
Yep. This was 80s 3D too.
Yeah, so it was real 3D. Actually, 3D is, especially on the disc, is really good. You get a disco Friday the 13th theme. This is the first appearance of the hockey mask. There's some memorable kills, but yeah, it's a Friday the 13th movie, so not great plot, not great characters, but some memorable kills.
Okay. Moving on here. On the next one on our list is number 11. Now, this is a recent movie, and it's kind of a self-parody. I don't know if you've seen this. Have seen this. I actually watched it on what is that streaming service for horror movies? I forget.
Shudder.
Shudder. And I watched this. I was going to have an interview with the director, but he responded to the first email and then not to the second ones. Found footage 3D. Have you seen this?
Oh yeah, and unfortunately, this only got an anaglyph 3D release, I believe. This looked really good on Shudder. In fact, I was
Yeah.
really impressed. I mean, once they jumped through all the hoops of why somebody would shoot a found footage movie in 3D. You know, if you can buy their excuse and go with it, you're going to have a good time. Otherwise, it's going to be a slog for you. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. It's meta, and we never talked about this one before the podcast, and it's fun. It's a fun movie if you're into meta movies and into horror movies, and it works for what it is.
Yeah, it's an above average found footage movie.
All right, the next movie on this list technically is not like a direct horror movie, but it definitely has a lot of spooky tones. And this is one of the more recent Tim Burton movies that I actually really love. I loved this in the theater when I saw it. I haven't rewatched it, but I think I own the Blu-ray. Mrs. Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Really interesting movie. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, this was pretty good. I mean, it's not as good as classic Burton, but it was much better than most of his recent movies before Beetlejuice.
So this one here is a lot of fun, and definitely it's like a time loop movie, but also spooky to a sense because some of the characters are spooky, and it's actually really well done, and I really like these characters, and I would have loved more of these kind of movies, and it just kind of went nowhere, so it's kind of sad. But
yeah, I agree.
all right, next movie on this list I have not seen. We're gonna get into a little bit of an Animal Run right now. Now this one, there's a new Parasite movie that won some Academy Awards, but this 1983 Parasite movie is noteworthy for its 3D, right?
Mm-hmm. And Demi Moore.
So tell us about Parasite 3D from 1983.
Oh God, it's been so long since I've seen it. I mean, it's your just standard B movie. I'm trying to remember how the plot of this because I kind of mixed this up with a bunch of others. They all came out at the same time, and I could never keep them straight in my head. But if I remember this one, this is a kind of a futuristic, and there's some good gore effects, and of course the 3D. And I believe Charles Band produced this. Might have even directed it. I don't remember quite off the top of my head. I mean, it's not my absolute favorite, but I mean, the 3D is worthwhile. You know, it is on disc. Grab it.
Okay. So, Parasite is a sci-fi horror film set in a dystopian future where scientists affected by a parasite he created must find a way to destroy it before it spreads all around humanity. um,
Sounds
where we,
ambitious, but it feels like it's been shot in hotel rooms.
yeah, a virus that spreads around the world and created in a lab. We've heard that before, haven't we?
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what news event that reminds me of.
So yeah, a Parasite. It's the first of a couple in a row of
Yeah.
creature movies.
And it would make a great double feature with Demi Moore's latest movie, The Substance.
Okay.
That should have been filmed in 3D. That would have been awesome. It's still a great movie, so check it out.
All right. Next up is Jaws 3. which released again in 1983.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the original. It gets confusing here because there's now two Jaws 3Ds.
Uh-huh. Well, I think they're calling it Jaws in 3D and Jaws 3D to try to differentiate them.
But originally it was just Jaws 3, and it got a 3D release in 1983.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this was I don't remember watching this, but I remember seeing clips of it, and it was really gimmicky, but a lot of fun, I think, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some effects that look so bad you're gonna laugh your ass off. They're hilarious. I mean, it was filmed at SeaWorld. God, I'm trying to remember this was somebody else's. I mean, and it's got like such an elective cast. Like Lou Goth Jr. I mean, it's just hilarious. It's not as hilarious bad as the fourth one, but this is my Sharknado.
So the next creature 3D movie that I think you will very much appreciate being on this list is a 2010 movie, Piranha 3D.
Oh God, yeah, remake of Joe Dante's Piranha. Jerry O'Connell plays one of the greatest scumbags on
Christopher Lloyd's here
screen.
too.
Hmm. Oh, there's all sorts of people in this, but he's just plays just such a slimy character, and there is a penis pop out scene that is hysterical.
This whole movie's hysterical. I was
Hmm.
literally crying in laughter watching this movie. I may have messed up the 3D because the glasses were so much crying because it's so ridiculous, but it knows it's ridiculous, and that's what makes it fun. And it's still kind of scary too, so it's
Yeah.
fun. It's
Okay. I mean, I honestly do not like this as much as Joe Dante's version,
okay.
but it is still a well worthy sequel, and it's got enough of a bite to it. It'll hold your interest. I mean, if you're looking for a feel good movie, look elsewhere.
Now I remember seeing this in theaters in 3D. I don't know if it was just the theaters were a little bit early to have 3D. I don't remember the 3D being that hot, but I don't know about you. Maybe it was just my theater at the time.
Yeah. Well, it looks good on disc.
Okay. Now the next movie on this list, technically is for kiddos, but it's a movie that everyone could enjoy, and a movie that whenever I rented it at home, it blew me away, and I feel like not many people talk about this movie. It's Monster House animated movie.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think it kind of got lost between Coraline and some of the other kind of Leica kind of kit and a Paranorman, and I think Monster House kind of got lost in the shuffle. I mean, to be honest, does not rise up to the level of Coraline or Paranorman, but it is still really good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Has Maggie Gyllenhaal in there. It has uh, Kevin James in there. Compared to other Kevin James horror kids animated movies, this is much better than those.
Mm-hmm.
None of those movies are in this list. Maybe for part 3.
Yeah, when we start really scraping the bottom of the barrel.
We won't even say what name that is. We'll let the audience guess, but I'm pretty sure you could figure that one out. All right, the next movie here, Jake, I've never seen, but I remember you saying that it's a pretty awesome movie. It's from 1953 called Robot Monster.
Oh God, I love this movie. It is so terrible, but I love it. So, directed by the incomparable Phil Tucker.
What is this
This
about?
is about a little over 60 minutes, but seriously, it's about the world. It's about the end of the world, and a family of survivors are trying to find the Ro-Man, which is basically a man in a gorilla suit with a diving helmet, is the monster.
So it's one of those silly 50s monster.
But the 3D is really good.
All right. All right.
If
Next.
you like old movies, it's well worth seeing. And it's one of the first appearances of actor George Nader.
All right. Next movie on this list is a horror franchise that kind of burnt itself out, but I think at least the earlier movies in the franchise are really well received, and it had a really good premise. Final Destination.
Yeah, decent 3D, kind of has great kills. I mean, story, yeah. I mean, you have fun if you catch all the almost every character's name is a homage to a old horror director or actor or writer. It's you watch Final Destination movies for the kills.
All
And
right.
the gore effects are superb.
Next movie on this list. One of the newer, entries. This movie was, people will say that Avatar was one of the part of the new age of 3D, and this kind of came around that time as well. My Bloody Valentine 3D.
Yeah, this is another remake. This is kind of a CW version of the original low budget indie Canadian movie, which wasn't in 3D, but it was heavily cut for the U.S. market. And it finally got an unedited release on home video. So check it out. This one isn't bad. I mean, it has a bunch of WB, UPN, CW actors. It's pretty. It's more or less follows the original version. Different kills, decent 3D. Not too many 3D movies you're gonna see with a killer is a minor,
Uh-huh.
and that's with an E, not an O.
All right, next up. Now, this movie did not originally get a 3D release, and the 3D version was basically kept in a vault for decades until a couple years ago when we had the pleasure of this getting re-released, which sadly it was limited to Regal, I think it was. Um, this horror classic, Dawn of the Dead,
Dead. Yeah.
1974.
Yeah, I believe this was got a release in Germany on home video, but I have not seen the home video release. But the 3D in this conversion is pretty good. The movie is excellent.
Yeah, it
It's
holds
one of
up.
it's one of the greatest zombie movies ever made.
It totally holds up. And I watched this brand new when it came out, and I was like, this 3D is really rad. And the movie itself, even though being in the 70s, holds up. It's a lot of fun. They play the 3D in ways that really work, and the deaths are quite hilarious and gruesome. Um, and it's a great kind of story about capitalism too, and it's really great.
Yeah, Romero wasn't just one of these horror directors that just liked to show blood and guts. He liked to have a point to his movie. He was one of those guys that used horror tropes and the horror genre to make points about the human condition, and it's what makes him a better filmmaker than a lot of guys.
Now, before we get to the number one, we have some honorable mentions. Now, the first two of these movies, we talk about in a different podcast, and They're not directly Halloween related, spooky kind of things, but they're adjacent. So that's why they're good honorable mentions. Book of Life and Coco.
Mm-hmm.
Book of
Yeah.
Life being 2014 movie and Coco 2017, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we talk all about those two movies in different podcasts.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. The
honorable mentions.
the dueling Day of the Dead movies.
And we also got Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness. Now, this is a controversial pick because people don't like this movie, even though I really enjoyed it and it had amazing 3D. And it is kind of really much a horror movie than anyone expected. And it works.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is Sam Raimi in classic form. Uh, and people forget. Not only is it horror director, he directed kind of the horror superhero movie Darkman with Liam Neeson.
All right. Um, I know it's controversial because people don't like how the multiverse was seen here and they don't like how Wanda was. I personally do not think it I think it totally works in WandaVision. I think it, I know a lot of people get mad and say no, no, no. It destroys that whole TV show, and I very much disagree with that notion. I think that she would be over it, but she got the dark hold, and the dark hold got into her head and basically gave her nightmares of her kids. And if you have those nightmares every day for like a year or something, of course you go crazy. So I'm fine with that. And Scarlet Witch has always been a super powerful um, character. So actually seeing that on screen was fun. So
Mm-hmm.
I defend Multiverse of Madness. I think it's a really fun movie. Yes, I would like to have more stuff in the multiverse, of course, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great 3D, and it's worth it alone for the kills.
Oh yeah.
Just, I mean, it has some incredible PG-13 kills.
Oh yeah. Just because the movie is not how you wanted it to be doesn't mean it's not a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
um, you just have to accept it for what it is, not for what you wanted it to be, and your disappointment of
Yeah,
that.
you might want, if you're really disappointed in this movie to the point where you want to like hunt down and hurt Sam Raimi and Kevin Feige, maybe you should read the latest piece by Alan Moore about toxic fandom and fascism. Just saying.
All right, let's get to the number one. Now, this number one is interesting. I put it on this list. I made this list. Jake, you made the last list.
Mm.
I guess if we do it again next year, I'll ask Jacob to do the next list of the other movies that we not list here. But
I'm
there's a
sure
big
he's
reason.
gonna love that.
Yeah. The main reason this next movie is number one is because, well, technically speaking, it is not a horror or spooky movie. It did scare people for decades and keep people away from the beach for decades. And we got a pretty fantastic re-release of it a couple years ago. Do you know what movie I'm talking about?
Oh, it's got to be Jaws in 3D, and Jaws is a horror movie.
You could argue that the blockbuster or the first blockbuster or not really a horror movie like with ghosts and goblins and vampires, but the shark is scary and
Yeah,
sharks are
and
legitimate.
and uh, and even after all these years, audiences still scream at some of it.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a shark swimming around when I was on the beach, you're damn sure I'm scared of it. I respect that.
Yeah, I res. Yeah, I res. Yeah, when I get in the ocean, I know I'm not top of the food chain.
Yeah.
Yeah, respect the food chain, and you'll be okay-ish in the water.
And we had the pleasure of seeing this movie get a 3D re-release, and it was out of the blue. I never even knew there was gonna do this at all. And then they're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, Jaws 3D is coming to theaters for July." It's like, what?
Yeah. And
Okay.
yeah, sold. Yeah, it was awesome seeing Robert Shaw's little speech about the Indianapolis in 3D. Whoa.
And it holds up so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and seeing the famous "We need a bigger boat."
And the political arguments about keeping the beach open is very relevant, and it still
Mm-hmm.
was something that people thought about with
Yeah.
COVID. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my list. What do you think of it, Jake?
Great list.
So there's definitely a lot more.
Mm-hmm. There's actually, if Jacob's got a list, I mean, there's still some decent movies, and hopefully some more get released. So he has the pickings won't be too slim.
Yeah, and he could use any of the honorable mentions I used or you used,
Mm-hmm.
um, and put them in the main list if he wants to. I don't care. It's fun. It's a
Yeah.
spooky time. Let's have fun. And
Mm-hmm.
if you want, I don't want to reuse any movie. That's I think a decent rule to stand by. That
Mm-hmm.
I picked Jaws, you can't pick Jaws, 1 or 3. But
Yeah.
he can pick whatever else he wants, and so yeah, definitely enough content here, and there's definitely another 10, 20, 30 movies to pick from. So there's definitely a lot of other 3D
Yeah.
horror,
Well,
3D
when
spooky.
he has to put Sharknado, when we reach the point that we have to put Sharknado to fill out a list, then maybe it's time to postpone the list. Just
Yeah,
saying.
and every good horror movie gets a sequel. That's a rule, basically, right?
Yeah, they horror movies have been turned into franchises. Thanks, Universal.
So, yeah, I guess that's gonna be it for non-patrons. Patrons, stick around for your bonus features.
Woohoo!
Anything else you want to say, Jake?
No, I think we just about covered it for Halloween.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.
So I got one quick thing to talk about. We have a merch store.
Woohoo!
We got t-shirts, we got tote bags, we got magnets, we got stickers, we got a little bit of everything.
Woohoo!
At this merch store, 3dr2d.com/store, you'll find many original designs and affordable prices. And I have a code for you. If you want to get 7% off your order, use Lucky7. It is spelled out LUCKY and the number 7, and you'll get 7% off your order. That website again is 3dor2d.com/store.
Woohoo!
Before this podcast wraps up, I want to thank MK Ultra, Gravity Head Zero, Travante Classics, and Axe Folk for being my super VIP patrons on Patreon.
You can find 3D or 2D on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, and more. Just look for 3D or 2D. Links are in the info box. If you want to send us listener mail, our email address is email3dor2d@gmail.com. Thank you for either listening or watching this podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.